Ready? Alright. The problem says that we use this equation to see how much an object weighs compared to its distance from the center of the earth. So they give us this equation, W equals CR to the negative 2, and they want us to solve it for R. This is how you do that. Solve this equation for R. W equals C, that's just multiplication right here. That's times R to the negative 2 power. You can also write R to the negative 2 power as 1 over R squared. So whenever we do that, we end up with W equals C over R squared. We can multiply both sides by R squared. Whenever we do, we get R squared is equal to W. R squared times W is equal to C. To get rid of, then we divide both sides by W, which gives us C over W. To get rid of the square that's over the R, take the square root of both sides, and you get R is equal to C over W, and the square root of that. That was confusing, wasn't it? Next it says, suppose that an object is 100 pounds when it is sea level. Find the value of C that makes this equation true. Sea level is 3,963 miles from the center of the earth. What we can do is we can take this equation and plug in the values they give us. Alright, W is for weight, C is a constant, and R is the distance from the center of the earth. So we can say W is equal to 100 pounds because they told us that. We know that R is at sea level, and we know that sea level is 3,963 miles. And we can just plug this in and work it out from here. You take this and you square it and you end up with this number right here. Multiply both sides by this number and it'll cancel over here, and whenever you multiply this number by 100 on this side of the equation, you'll end up with this. Now the units on this are a little weird. Whenever you take 3,963 miles and you square it, you end up with this number squared, and a mile times a mile is a mile squared. It's sort of like this. That's actually a mile squared. And this is the final answer right here. Next they say use the value of C that you found in the previous question to determine how much the object would weigh in Death Valley. Death Valley is 282 feet below sea level. So what we got to do is, since our constant C we found is in the units of miles squared, we also are going to have to convert this 282 feet to how big that is in a mile. So that's what I did right here. Anytime you want to convert anything and you know the conversion factor, take the number you're given and your conversion factor. Whenever you take your conversion factor, always put the units of what you're given and the units of that conversion factor in the denominator. For an example, like 2.5 centimeters equals 1 inch. So if you're given a centimeter and you want to know how many inches, just say you're given 5 centimeters and you want to know how many inches. You take 2.5 centimeters, put that in the denominator, equals 1 inch. So that's 5 divided by 2.5 times 1. And that'll tell you that that's 2 inches. So anyways, that's what I did right here. 282 feet. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So when you take 282 and divide it by 5,280, your feet units cancel. You times a mile, so you end up with miles as your unit, and that's your answer. 0.0534 miles is equal to 282 feet. They told us that sea level is this number, and we know that Death Valley is below that number, so we subtract this mile answer from here, and we end up with this number right here. From there we just plug it back into our equation. W is equal to C over R squared. This is our constant that we found in that last step. This is it right here. This is our C. This is our R value right here. So we square it, and we end up with this number whenever we take and square the bottom right here. Like I was saying earlier, a mile times a mile is a mile squared. The mile squared from our constant value and the mile squared from our radius value, they both cancel, which leaves us only the units of a pound, which is good because the question asks us how much would the object weigh, so we know we're looking for pounds. And whenever you divide this number by this number, you end up with 100 point this decimal right here. Alright, next they say the top of Mount McKinley is 20,320 feet above sea level, and they want to know how much this same object would weigh there. What we do, take the 20,320 feet, divide it by 5,280 because that's our conversion factor. That's equal, 20,320 feet is equal to 3.848 miles. Sorry about that. We know that sea level is here. We know that Mount McKinley is well above sea level, so we add those two values together and we come up with this value right here. This will be our R value. We know our C value because we found it in the previous step. We plug it into our formulas. W is equal to C over R squared. Whenever we square this out, we end up with this number right here. Same thing again, we end up with a mile squared. These mile squares cancel, leaves us in pounds, which is what we're looking for. At Mount McKinley, that object to weigh this right here, 99.8 pounds. Alright, next, this is the second part. The equation D equals 1.2 times the square root of H gives the distance D in miles that a person can see to the horizon from a height of H in feet. First they want us to solve this equation for H. First thing we do, this is multiplication right here. This is 1.2 times the square root of H. So we can divide right here. So D divided by 1.2 is equal to the square root of H. Anytime you want to get rid of a square root, you square both sides. And that'll get rid of the square root. And that leaves us with D over 1.2 squared is equal to H. Next they say Long's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park is 14,255 feet in elevation. How far can you see to the horizon from the top of Long's Peak? And they also want to know, can you see Cheyenne, Wyoming, about 89 miles away, and they want us to explain our answer. Alright, so we take our formula they give us. D is equal to 1.2 times the square root of H. So we just take our value of how tall Long's Peak is, which is 14,255, multiply those two together, 1.2 times the square root of 14,255 feet. Now the units right here, there's no rhyme or reason why you go from feet to miles. They just tell us that D is in miles, and we know whenever we multiply this out that we're going to be in miles. So we're just taking their word for it on that. Whenever we multiply that out, we get 143 miles, .273, which is really irrelevant, but that's the answer. They said that they wanted to know, could we see Cheyenne, Wyoming from this distance? And they said that it was 89 miles away. Yeah, we can, because 89 miles is less than 143, and this is a max distance, because they said that this is the distance you can see, so that's the furthest you can ever see is this. So yes, you can see Cheyenne, Wyoming. And that's it.